Hey you guys, Guy Stevens here. Someone asked me how you would easily be able to make a Filemaker file with information about story characters, where you could very easily kind of navigate through the different characters without needing to click around too much. So let's try some stuff out. I've got a new file that I'm making, so you go to File and then do New Solution. You create a new file and then let's get started. So I don't need my field picker right now, so I'm going to close this one. Let's get my inspector a little bit closer and let's get cracking. So before we start with anything, we're going to need to make some tables. Now, because I gave my file a name characters, FileMaker automatically starts with a table called characters, and actually in this case that is fine. We're gonna keep that one. So let's look at the fields that we've got in there. Of course we don't have any right now, but let's add a few. I always make an ID field, which is a number field, and I will always create that one and then set it to have an auto enter option of a serial number, so that every character gets their own serial number. Okay, cool. So then I would like to have a character name. I could have first and last name separate. If I want to do that, I'm going to do name, which will be a text. And then I will do last name, which will also be a text field. Whoops, I did this thing wrong. Let's change this one, and then let's do last name. And then let's create that one. Okay, cool. And so I've got two text fields for the last name and the name and the last name. And then what else could I get? I could get like a personality. I could get maybe the background of this character. Now, and a picture. Now, of course, in your file, you're going to be making something entirely different, but this is just an example. Let's make this picture field a container field, and then we've got some good fields for our character database. Okay, let's hit OK, and now I've got nothing on my layout, which is kind of annoying, and there's a few ways that I can add fields. I can use this kind of draggy tool, but I can just also use my view field picker, which I just had before that I clicked away, and then I can easily add multiple fields at the same time. So I can just click this one and then shift click the bottom one. I have to decide how my fields are going to be placed on top of each other or next to each other, and I want to decide where my label is going to be. It's going to be on the left side, which is good, and then I can drag all of these on there. Now this kind of shows you where the fields are going to be, but you have to leave some room for the labels. So there they are. Okay, good. This looks kind of cool. Now I'm done with my field picker, so that can go. And let's have a look. I've got a name, a last name, a personality, a background, and a picture. That's cool. Let's start by making a new record, and let's fill in some fields, right? Let's say that we have Jack Smith. Let's say that he is, I don't know what personality he has. Let's go and find out. Actually, let's just go and get a character in here. So let's say that we've got this guy, and we can't see it very well because the image field is kind of small. First of all, let's delete this because I don't really need that. Let's make the image field a little bit bigger. And then let's see. Oh, he's a kind of business. Oh no, his personality is that he's really smart and sneaky because he makes a lot of money. In his background, he is a businessman. Okay, cool. So now I've got one, and now I can make a new one, and I can just add something else in here, and then we've got Judy Smith. Did we already have a Smith? I don't care. Personality, she's very happy and fun, and she is into sports. I don't know if that's really a background, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so now we've got a couple of characters, and I can kind of click through them. I don't have a lot yet, but only two. I can easily click through them, But if I have more characters, then it's going to become a little bit difficult to kind of click through all of those characters and to try and find the one you're looking for. So what I usually do is I will add a list of all my characters. So let's make that happen here. Okay, let's make this one a little bit bigger here. Actually, let's make this body a tiny bit smaller so that my screen stays good. Okay, let's add a little button here up top that says show a list. And then I would like to add a drawing to that. That looks a little like this. Okay, cool. Okay, that's good. That's a nice button. Let's put it up here. Now this button needs to show me a list of all of my characters. Now I don't have that list yet, so I have to make it. I can go into layout mode and then I can choose to create a new layout. And I'm going to call this one list characters. It's going to show records from my characters. That's good. It's going to be something from my computer and it's going to be a list view. Okay, let's finish this. And now I've got a new layout, but this layout looks a lot different. Let's just add a field by dragging it in here. And let's say that I would like to have the name field. Okay. But this label here is kind of useless. And I'm not going to drag it up here because then I can't really see it very well. I need to make a new text. And if I put a text in here, then this text is automatically in a different color. And the reason for that is if you go into your styling here, is this the styling? The label is not showing up. Oh yeah, appearance, styles, yes. In your styles, this one has been given the style of header text, whereas this one was the default because it was created in here. So I don't need this one, let's let it go. The name can be a little bit bigger, and then this one can be like lined out like this. This one can go a little lower, and this one can go up a little bit. Okay, cool. Now we've got a good start. Let's maybe move them with our arrow keys a little bit more to the side. Let's hit Alt and let's copy them over here. Let's give them a little space there, so maybe like this. And then let's double click this one and let's say last name. Okay, cool. Now maybe our last name could be a little longer, so let's do this. And then if I want, I could add some more fields to this as well, like the personality and the background. Maybe I'll just add one more, and then we can see that they start to line out very nicely. Personality, yep. There, I think that's enough for this list view. I don't really need any more. Okay, let's go back into edit layout because there's a little space left here. Let's kind of undo that to make this go a bit higher. Oops. And then if I want, I could add a title here that says character list. Let's click on my little A here so I can get my formatting bar and I can line it up like this. Maybe make it a bit bigger. Oops. Maybe make it a bit bigger like so. And then yes, that's kind of cool. Okay, so I've got my character list. And so I've got my two characters here, but how do I go to them? It's not very easy right now, but what I can do is make a button. And either I can make a separate button or I could use one of the fields to become a button. Now, if we use a separate button, then we can always still edit these fields. If we turn one of those fields into a button, then we can't edit that field anymore because as soon as you click in that field, the button kind of gets activated. So I'll show you the both ways. So this one is a simple button, show details. And this the action is going to be a single step, and the single step is going to be go to layout. And the layout is going to be my character's layout. So if I do that, okay, then I've got a button. Now my button isn't standing out very much. It's gray like everything else is. But if I go into my styling, then I can see that I have an accent button, a blue one, a green one. I like the yellow one. So I'm going to use this number 4 here. Great. Let's exit the layout. And so the kind of the record that is selected now is the Judy one. And if you kind of go up now, it's Jack, Judy. But if I click on this one, I'm seeing Jack's details. Now I can go back to my list. Now I hadn't created this buttons script yet, so I'll have to do that now. I have to say that my button action is a single step, which is go to layout. And we're going to go to the other layout now, the list. Okay, cool. So now I can go to my list. I forgot one thing I see. If I double click this one, I always like to have this box checked because it changes my cursor to a hand when I hover over the button. That makes it more visible that there is actually a button there. Now I could also give this one a color. Let's make it green. Sure, that makes it look more fun. Okay, so I can show my list, and then I can see my characters, and then I could select a character. Now it's a little bit annoying that the button is in the end there, but it's okay. So an alternative would be that you make the name itself a button. Now the annoying thing is that I've got the first and the last name separate, but I can very easily change that. Let's go to File, Manage Database, and let's make a full name field, and that's going to become like a calculation. So I like to call this one C underscore for calculation, and then full name. It's going to be a text, so I'm going to create this one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an auto enter calculation. And the auto enter calculation is basically going to take both the name and the last name. Now you could think to do this space and then that, but that's not going to work. If you try that one, FileMaker will tell you that this cannot be found. This is not going to work. If you want to combine two different fields, you need to use some kind of an operator, and the operators are here. So I want to use name and I want to use last name. But if I simply do this, then what's going to happen is, let's even try that out. Let's go into whichever one, and then let's add a new field here, and let's take that C full name field. Let's just put it here for now so we can kind of see what happens. Okay, so nothing is happening now because the name has already been filled in. This field is only going to update when a change happens in one of those fields. So if I make a new record and I make, for instance, a record for, let's say, who else do I want? This one, let's say that her name is Lynn McGuire. I don't even know how to write that. MacGyver then. Okay, MacGyver, sure. So if I create this name, only her first name shows up. That's kind of a problem. Let's go back to File, Manage, Database, and let's go to the full name, and let's see, there is a check mark here that says do not replace the existing value of the field if there is any. So now basically what happened was I typed in the first name, that became a value in that field, and I typed in the second name, but that's not going to replace the existing value of the field. So let's uncheck this box, let's hit OK, and let's try this again. Let's cut this name out and let's paste it back in. Okay, now this updates, but as you can see, there is no space in between the names. If we go back to File, Manage Database, what we've actually done is we've put in the name and the last name, but we also have to add a space in there. So we have to add a space, which is a piece of text, and a text also always needs to be between quotations, and then we need to add the last name as well. So basically what we have is we have three elements here. We have a field, we have a piece of text, and we have another field. So field names can just be written in here. You can add them by double clicking. But text needs to be put between quotation marks. And then those three elements need to be joined by an operator like one of these from this list. Okay, so this one, if we hit OK, if we just make a change here, let's say if I change the last N and then add the last N again, we will see that that updates and that gives us a full name. Now, that's the difference between a calculation field and an auto enter calculation text field, is that a calculation field would have updated automatically, but it takes longer to calculate. Now, in a simple situation like this, that's not a problem, but if you have lots of files and lots of calculations, that could be a kind of a problem. So let's change Judy's name, and then her full name shows up. It's same for Jack. Let's update this field. So we have his full name. Okay, now we have the full names for all of the characters. Now let's go to my show list, and let's change this simply by the name. So let's take this one, let's do full name. And because what we can now do is change this into a button, and then you can't edit it anyway, so it doesn't matter that that's a calculation field. You can't get into that field anyway, because as soon as you click on it, the button is going to work. So let's make a button setup. Let's do a single step. You know this one by now. Go to layout, and we're going to go to my characters layout. Okay, and I want this to be like a button-y type thing. Cool. So this one can be a little closer. And then actually, I don't even need this button anymore. Now, I don't like this view where there is one that is looking different than the others, and there are no kind of lines here. So what I like to do is I like to go to layout setup, either using this pen or going to layouts, layout setup, and then you can uncheck this delineate fields on current record only, because I don't like that setting. Okay, so now it's a bit clearer. It's a list. Maybe the names will not be that long, so maybe we can make this a bit shorter. And then if we want, we could even add some more fields if we'd like. We can just add the background as well. Background. There we go. Okay, this is pretty simple stuff. So we need to smart and fun. Background, she is a business woman. Okay, this is not the deepest stuff, but yeah, okay, you get the point. So now you can just kind of browse through these characters like this. If you want to look for a specific character, you can go to the list, pick whichever one you want, and then you can get back here. Now, maybe this list is a step too far for you. Maybe this kind of takes you out of your character view, and maybe you don't want that. So are there any other ways that you can more easily navigate between characters without having to kind of move around like this? Well, there are, and you can actually kind of do this in a couple of different ways. So let's see if we can come up with some of them. Now, a very simple thing that we could do is we could create a little drop down of all our characters, and as soon as we select a character from that drop down, we will arrive at that character's record, if you will. That's very easy, so let's go to File, Manage Database, and let's add a new field for this. Let's do okay, that's not a very imaginative name, but yeah, that'll do the trick. Let's make this one a number field, and let's create that one. Now, let's hit OK for now. There is one more change that I want to do, but let's take this one step at a time. Let's go here and let's add this field to the layout. Let's put it here for a second. Let's do character drop down, and let's create a label, and let's change that to select character. Okay, cool. So let's make our little drop down. So let's select this one. Let's go into data here. Let's say that I don't want this one to be a drop down list. Let's take the values from, and we don't have any value lists yet, so let's make a new one, and let's say characters. Okay, let's use the values from a field. Let's do characters ID, but also display the full name, because the ID is kind of useless to me, and I want to show only values from the second field, which is the character name. And okay, that sounds kind of good to me. Let's exit the layout. And so now we can select the character, and if we click here, we can see that we've got Jack Smith, Judy Smith, or Lynn MacGyver. We are on Lynn MacGyver now, so we can select Jack Smith. But if we do so, the ID of this character shows up, which is kind of annoying. So there's probably two things that you can do. One thing I never ever do is you can turn this into a pop-up menu. I never really use that one. I don't really know why, but you could. So okay, that's probably the easy way to go. But for some reason, let's try something. Check Oh, it does work. Okay, you could just type ahead and select a name. Okay, well, maybe a pop-up menu does work, so you can use that. I always end up using a drop-down list. I don't know, I guess it's just a habit. For some reason, I like those. I think the problem starts with the pop-up menu when it is too long. Just doesn't work very well. Anyway, if you're going to use a drop-down list for some reason, like an idiot like me, what I would like to do is I'd like to alt drag this field off and copy it. Oops, I have gone a little too fast. Actually, making a drop-down does make it more complicated though. Okay, doesn't matter. Let's go to File, Manage Database. Let's go to relationships. Let's take this one, characters, and let's hit the two crosses here, the two pluses, and that makes a duplicate table occurrence of that table. Now we didn't create a new table, because if you go to your tables, you will see that you still only have one table, but we have two occurrences of this table in our graph. Now, what I like to do is I'm going to take this character drop down, because that's basically going to contain the ID of a character, and I'm going to relate that to this ID, and I'm going to call this one characters drop down. Okay, cool. So that when I select a character and I have its ID in here, if I add a field, so let's copy this one from my characters drop down and I choose the full name, then what I get is the name of my selected character shows up in here. So I can select Judy Smith, and then Judy Smith shows up in here. Now, as you see, this is also a drop down, which is kind of unhandy. I don't want that, so let's make this one an edit box. Cool. And now for it to work so that I can only see, so I don't have to see this, what I do is I like to put those two on top of each other, so that this one is not visible, but I do want this one to be available in browse mode, just not in find mode, and I want this one to be available in find mode, but not in browse mode, and that way I can just put both of them on top of each other like this and that. And then what you get is you can select a character and his name or her name shows up right there. Okay, that's part one. That's kind of cool. Now the second thing we need to do is when we select this character, we actually have to get to that character's record so that we can easily maneuver. So for that, what we need is a certain action needs to happen as soon as we have selected a name. Now, there is such a thing in FileMaker as a script trigger. Because we're going to be using this bottom field, that's the one we're actually using, we're going to have to move this one out of the way for a second in order for this to work. Now, you have script triggers that where you can basically trigger a script, and that script can be triggered on different events. And the events that you have are listed here. And there's a little explanation for every script trigger. So this script will be run after the selected object becomes the active object. That is the onObjectEnter event. That doesn't sound very good. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to click inside here. We're going to get our drop down. We're going to select a character, basically click on it. And when that character is selected, we would then have to move to that character's record. So it is not on object keystroke, it is on object modify maybe, or on object save, or on object exit. So you have a save and you have an exit, two things that are very similar. We could do modify maybe as soon as we modify the value in here, then it could happen as well. Let's check that one, that's kind of good. Then we need to select the script, we don't have one yet. So we should just add one like this. Go to character record. Okay, so basically let's just hit OK for a second. Let's go OK, all of that is good. So this little red star here notes that on this field there is a script trigger on this field. So let's think about what needs to happen. So I'm gonna select a character like Jack Smith. His ID shows up in here, ID number 1, and then basically I want to see the record of Jack Smith. So two things that I could do. Either I could perform a find for this ID. But the problem with that is if you do a find, let's say, let's go and edit layout. Let's add a field here. Let's add the character's ID in here. If you do a find, let's say you do a find for, oh wait, there are no IDs. Why are there no IDs for these characters? Auto enter a serial number. Okay, yep, they should be having IDs. Okay, she has ID 1 and the others don't even have IDs. That's kind of funny. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, okay, from characters. I need to add the ID field from characters, not from characters drop down. Of course, that's not going to work. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, and there I've got my number 3. So the IDs of the characters have been filled in. What I could do is I could select, like I'm now on Lynn MacGyver's record, which is ID number 3. But I want to go to, for instance, Jack Smith, who is ID number 1. I could say, do a find for the character ID number 1. And basically what would happen is I would go in find mode. I would search for ID number 1. I would perform that find and I would arrive at Jack Smith. And that's a good thing to do. But the problem with this is now I have arrived at 1 of 3 records that I have found. If I try to browse through my other records or even go to my list, all of a sudden the only character I'm seeing is Jack Smith. Because I performed a find, now that's all that I'm seeing. So I can do show all, and then all my other records are visible again. So that's a step that you could add to that script, but it's a bit tricky and risky. You have to pay attention to that, but it could work. So let's try it out. Let's go to the script workspace and let's make a new script. Oh, we already had our script. So what we could do is you always have to think about what happens. So first we select a value from our drop down, and when we've selected that value from our drop down, that drop down gets a value. So let's what we have to do is take that value and we have to remember it. Remembering a value is called set variable. Let's say character ID. I always have to give a variable a name and a value. My name is going to be character ID. The value is going to be the character drop down value, because there that number 1 is being stored for now. Now you do have to remember we just created a simple field, so that value is going to be stored right there. And if you go to another record, you will kind of lose that value. So before you do a find and stuff like that, you move off of this character's record, the current character that you're on, you have to kind of remember that value, which is what we're doing here. So set variable, then we're going to enter find mode, and the pause can be off. So if you hit space, this value changes. And then we tap a bit ahead to not have anything selected. Let's hit return. And then let's say, let's do a set field. And we want to set the ID field with the value that I just created right here. So $ character ID. So $ character ID. So that's basically my character ID that I just created. Then I'm going to do a perform find. Before I do a perform find, I always want to do a set error capture on, and then I'm going to do a perform find. Okay, and if you remember, then I will find my 1 character and I'll only be looking at 1 character, so then I have to do a show all records. Okay, let's save this script by hitting Command S on the Mac, or let's go to File. I don't know where it is. I think it's in Scripts, Save Script or something. Yeah, Save Script. So it's Command S, and then I can close this, and then I have to kind of actually I already had this on the correct script trigger. So yep, on my onObject modify, I've got to go to character record as a script. Okay, let's do that. I am on character 1. Let's select a character. Let's select Lynn MacGyver. And boom, I arrive at this Lynn MacGyver record. So now I've got a bunch of stuff here that looks a little funky. I don't want to see my character's ID. I want to get both of these on top of each other. So let's do this and that. Okay, so now I've got Judy Smith that I can select, and I arrive at Judy Smith. Now there's one more change that I do want to do, and that is, I will show it to you in the list how this works. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add the field of character dropdown. I don't want a label for this. I'm just going to put it here. This is basically the field that I'm using to perform my find. Now, on every single record, there is a different ID, because if I'm on Judy Smith's character and I want to find Jack Smith, boom, then I arrive at Jack Smith. But right now, I've got all of these different numbers on all of these different fields. So what I would like to do is, because this one is kind of a universal field, I would like to put this, let's go to File, Manage Database, on global storage. Use global storage. Turning global storage on or off will cause all existing data in this field to be lost. Proceed anyway. Okay, and what a global storage field actually does is, the value that's inside this field will be the same for all records. So if I go on Lynn MacGyver, if I select Jack Smith, that's number 1, then my value number 1 will be actually will exist in every single record. So that means I could actually even change my script to not even use a variable. I could just now use that global field, because no matter which record I'm on, that value is going to be visible for every single record. So that doesn't really change anything, and this is fine. This is the perfect way to do it. But you could also now change your script a little bit. You could say, I don't want to use the variable. I'm just going to set the field not with my variable, but simply with my character drop down, because that's now a global field anyway. I can always get that value. There you go. And now it can work like this, which really makes no difference whatsoever. But in some situations, it's kind of interesting to know what a global field is like and how it behaves. An important thing to know is, as well, is if you are using this file with multiple different users, then using a global field like this is kind of essential, because otherwise, if it's just a simple field and you are looking up someone and another user at the same time is also looking up someone, then the value is going to change and you might end up in the wrong place, and that's not going to work very well. A global field is unique for every user. So you can go in there and change this field as much as you want. It's not going to affect the other people that are also using the database. So this is actually kind of better database design to use for a search field like this, to use a field with global storage. That's better to do it that way. Okay, so we can select a character and then we automatically move to that character. That's kind of good. That's kind of smart. There is also another way to do it. I've shown you this already anyway. An even simpler way would be, let's see, because in our file manage database, in our relationship settings, we've got a related table set up now anyway. We could even use a very simple step, because we're actually going to a related record. As soon as we select a character in here, that character becomes kind of related here. There is a relationship between these two, and if we put a value in this, then boom, we've got the relationship there. I think I'm explaining it very badly, but what we could do in our script, instead of using all of these things, we could make a different script, and we could say, we could call this one go to related character. And I use go to related because there is actually a script step called go to related record, and then we could say get related record from characters drop down, show the record using the current layout, and boom, that basically is one simple line. I'm going to save this script. And let's try that one out. So let's get this one out of the way. Let's go into the script triggers and let's do on object modifier. You know what? Let's not do it. Let's do it on object. Exit. Go to related character. Okay, let's try that one out. See if it works. Judy Smith. And boom. So this is basically the same script, but just with one simple script step. And it works as well. Let's get this one back on top of the other one. Okay, so as you can see in FileMaker, there are often different ways to do things. They could have their pros or their cons or whatnot. Okay, let's say that this is not so handy for you because you still have to click and click again, and you would like to have more of an overview of your characters. Well, we could do that as well. First of all, maybe we could make this one look a little bit unique by making it, oops, not this, but making the fill a little bit of a purple. Okay, cool. So we have this one now, but let's move it out of the way a bit. Maybe we'd like to do this a little different way. Let's put this one in the bottom here, or maybe up top here. Okay, so another way to do is to make a bit of a list. You could put it here or put it on this side where you can see all of your characters. So you can just simply click on one of their names and then be navigated to that character's record. That way you can always stay on this layout. You don't need to click to go to the list, or you don't have to kind of click in here to get a list of characters. Now, if we want to use a little list inside a layout, that's something called a portal tool. So if you go into layout mode, we can find it right here. It's the portal tool, and it says that it can display records from related tables on a layout. Now we do for that need a related table, but we've kind of already gotten that. We have a table that we are on and we have a related table, but this one is not really going to do the trick for us. We're going to need another one, and I'll show you in a second why that is. Let's just try it the wrong way first, and then we can learn from that. Let's make our list. Let's put it here because that's a good spot to put our list. Let's put it like so, and then we show the related records from our characters drop down. Let's try that one because we have that one already. Hey, it's a related table. Hey, it might work. I don't know. So let's leave. Let's just click only on this one. That's the only one we need. And we could use an alternate row state. That way it's more easily, it's easier to kind of see the different rows. Let's click OK, and let's only add the full name of the characters. Okay, so one more thing I always like to change is I like to click this one and then go here and give me a, let's give me a navigate, oh no, a default one, because the minimal one doesn't have any borders around the field, and I think that that's annoying. Okay, so if we do that, what we get is we see only Jack Smith, and that's kind of weird because this is supposed to show me a list of all the characters, but it's only showing me one. And I'll give you a little hint. If I click this one and I select Judy Smith, then I'm only seeing this one. And the reason for that is this character drop down field is getting a value, and this related table will only show me records where the ID of that character is equal to the ID that's in the character drop-down field. So it's always only going to show me one single character. So that's not interesting, so I don't really want that. What I want is I want to see all the characters. So this relationship for me is wrong. So I need to do something about that. What I need to do first of all is I'm going to have another related table. So I'm going to alt drag this down, and I'm going to call this one characters all. Now I need to create some sort of a relationship between this one and this one, but it needs to be a relationship where the relationship will always show me all the records. Now, if you want to do that in an is equal fashion, then you would need something like a field in here that has the value of 1, for instance, and therefore, because it has the value number 1 in it, and if all these ones have a value number 1 in it as well, they will always be equal, and then you can use this system. But there's another trick that you can use. You can just take a field that is definitely going to have a value, like the ID field, related to the ID field here, and then just simply double click this one and make sure that you use a different type of operator in between. And that the one that I want to use is the X, because the X operator, or an X join, or also named a Cartesian join, means that in here I will always see all of the records no matter what. So that's basically the one we're going to use in in our situation here. Make sure you hit change so that the relationship is actually changed to an X join, and then let's hit OK. So because of this relationship between the two, I'm going to be able to see all of the characters. So let's click OK, and let's change this one. We have to change two things. First of all, we have to double click this portal and say that I want to show records not from characters drop down, but from characters all. That's good. And then I also want to double click this full name field, because that's now coming from the characters drop down table occurrence, but I want this to come from characters all. And if we do that, then we will see all of our characters. It sounds a little complicated, but I hope because of this example you can kind of understand these relationships a little bit better, and you can see why you would use a different kind of relationship like this. Okay, so I have my actually, I don't need this footer, so I'm going to delete it, and that gives me a little more space here, so I can make my list here a little bit bigger. Actually, I have to go in here, and let's say I can add 16 rows. Yeah, okay, that's a little bigger now. I might want to make this one a little bigger as well, so I'm going to just move all of this over here. There you go. And then I can make this one move a bit there. Okay, kind of cool. And I can make it a bit bigger. Like so, and like so. Okay, cool. So now what I have to do is I just have to create this button here, and this button here, and I have to make sure that if I click this one, I will actually be going to the record for this character. Okay, so I can do this yet another way, because I've been doing this in different ways already. Actually, I don't really want to use this manner in this way. You know what I should do? I should just copy my layout. Let's go to File, Manage Layouts. Let's have one layout for characters. Let's duplicate this one, because actually I want this one to be characters portal, and that way in my example file you can see the different layouts. So let's have characters and character portal. Okay, this one will have the portal, this one will not. So let's take the portal out of this one. There you go. Now we have characters and characters portal. Okay, and the portal one, I actually don't want to use this, but I do need to kind of have the ability now to navigate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into a button that actually selects a name. Let's do this. Let's turn this into a button, and a button is going to be very simple. Let's do select character. Okay, so if we remember correctly, this one was actually a very simple script, only one step, so I would like to keep using that one. I would like to go to a related character, and I can do that by putting the character's ID, the ID of the character that I select, into this field. I can do that. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to do set field, and I'm going to set the field character drop down, and I'm going to set that to the value of characters all ID. So that is kind of cool. And then what I'm going to do, just to be sure, is commit record requests with the dialog off. Okay, commit record request basically means that if you set a field, set a value into a field, commit record request is basically like exiting that field, hitting the tab or the return key, and then you have basically saved the value into that field. So let's hit Command S so that it saves that one. Kind of cool. So let's try this one out. Let's go to button setup, because this is going to become a button now. Let's do a perform script, and let's do select character. Let's change the cursor to a hand. That's good. Let's change the look of this as well, so that it looks more like a hyperlink, and you can kind of feel that, oh, this is something I can click. So if we click on Jack Smith, it changes the value in this field. So that's good. Lynn MacGyver, so that's good, but it's not really changing the value here. It's actually just changing the value in here. It's that little ID there, and you can see that the ID changes. Now, after the ID has changed, we can then do this simple step. So I can either just copy this one and paste it in the bottom of this script, or I can go in here and I could say perform script, go to perform this script. So I could say perform script, oops, perform script this script. So that is going to set my field, commit my record to save that value, and then it's going to perform this script. So let's hit save and close the script thingy here. So let's go to Jack Smith. Boom. Lynn MacGyver. See, so now this works well, and now I can basically get rid of this one because I don't really need it anymore. And I could put this text here. Something like that. So now I can very easily click through all of my characters. Now let's say that I want to create a new character. Now I could use my new record button, but I've done that before. I could also just create an entirely new button for this. If we really have got like users that are not so super smart, I could say new character, and this is really going to make it kind of dummy proof. Let's make it a bit more like this. Yeah, and then let's make it a new button. Let's make it blue. I don't have a blue one yet. Now what I could do is I could have a very simple single step where I could say new record. That's a very simple single step, but if I use this button and I say new character, well, I actually already do arrive in this field, so that's okay. But if I would not arrive in this field, I could make a script that says create a new record, but that also kind of goes to this field. But because it's the first field, actually this is good enough. Now, going from this one to this one, you would usually use the tab key. But what I noticed before is that my tab order is not right. If I tab, then I'm going to go through all of these and then there. That's not good. That's not a good tab order. My tab order should be here, 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 and then maybe this one. So I have to change that by going to edit layout, layouts, set tab order, and then I have to set this one as 1. That's good, but this one is 2. That's not good. So I want to set this one as 2. This one as 3, and there's another way that you can do that is you can just clear all, and then you can just click 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you know, as you want. So, okay, you can do it that way as well. So my button is actually good enough. If I hit my new character button, I will arrive in here. So let's see, who else did I have? I've got this one. Name is Daisy Duke. And she is a very outgoing girl. She's a fashion blogger, as most young ladies are these days. Okay, so now, as you can see, did I say Daisy Duke? That's not right. So this Daisy Duke that I've just created has been added to this list, of course, automatically, because this system is set up in such a flexible way that you can easily create a new character, and that new character will automatically arrive in this list. Who else did I have? This guy, he is, let's say he is George's. Oops, that's very George's. Champ, he's a very smart guy, and he is a student, and as you can see, he has been added to this list as well. So this is the simplest way to do this. You can add as many characters as you want. This list will just simply be populated, and then eventually you could scroll down to it, and there's really nothing for your user to do other than to create new characters and to just select them in this list. And this way gives you kind of a very simple single layout with all of the features on it, and so your user doesn't really have to know anything or do anything at all. If you want to make this a little bit fancier, maybe there is another little something that we could add. I didn't really think this one through, but let's just try it out. Let's go to File, Manage Layouts. And let's duplicate this once more, and let's try and see if we can do something with a popover. Because a popover is one of those really fancy new things. When you create a button, you can use a button, or you could also create a popover button, which is far more fancy. And maybe that's something that you can use if you don't have this kind of space on your layout. So let's do that. Let's put it up here. Let's make it nice and big, and let's call it select a character. Okay, This looks kind of boring, so let's make it I haven't used that red one yet. Okay, so we have our popover button set up, and let's say that I would like to see the popover at the bottom. Yeah, that's good, or maybe even to the side there. That's yeah, let's just use the bottom, that's fine. And then what we've got basically is, if we exit our layout, there is not a lot of room needed, but as soon as you click it, the popover kind of opens up, and then you can close it again. So what we could do is basically put this whole thing inside of our popover. So let's maybe make this one a little bit smaller for a sec. Let's say that this one is not going to be needed anymore. Let's take this one, move it over here for a second, and let's move it on top of this thing. Let's see if that works. Yeah, that looks like it could work. And then let's make it a bit bigger again. I don't know if 10 will fit. 10 fits, then 12 fits as well. And we could even make this bigger here, so that maybe even 16. Oof, that still fits too. Okay, so my popover has a name. Popover, I don't like to use that. Let's use something like this. Okay, let's see if this works now as well. Select a character. Let's go to, I am on Lynn MacGyver. Let's go to our George. There you go. And this way you've got more room to kind of expand like this. If you've got maybe some large fields you want to use here, you could fill up your entire layout with all kinds of other stuff. And then you can just go in here and select someone else and arrive at their record as well. So basically this this makes it look a little more fancy, I would say. So I don't know if this is well lined up. Yep, okay, looking good. So, okay, I guess these are a few different ways in which you could go about doing this. So you can choose whichever works best for you. And as you can see in FileMaker, usually there are many different ways to go about achieving the same result. All right, I hope you guys learned something. Bye-bye, ciao. If you guys want to learn a ton more about FileMaker, you can head over to my Udemy page where I've got a bunch of entire FileMaker courses online. You can follow them, and basically we make entire FileMaker systems from scratch, and I'll take you on the entire process step by step. There is even one that is completely free, so you can just follow that free of charge, and that is a beginner tutorial where we make an entire contacts database. That's a really fun one that you can follow that can teach you the basics of FileMaker. So head over there by following the links in the description, and I'll see you guys there.